And we are talking about Falcon and Winter Soldier. I didn't realize we're actually definitely going to do that. That's good.
Yes, it's in our planning. Just do.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah,
we had a whole planning session. We talked about it.
We had our meeting. Were you there, Tal?
Tal's just annoyed it's not his feature at the end. He's like,
"What? Yeah, this is it." By the time it gets that far, if it's not my feature, I'm not really interested, to be honest.
4 men in a wormhole.
Welcome to season 2 of 4 Men in a Wormhole. And this is our very first episode of season 2. My name's Stephen Gurevitz, the host. And joining us for this season, once again, are my 3 colleagues, comrades. We have Wormies, even. Wormies. Thank you, Adam. Yes, Wormies. We have Wormy number 1, Simon Cohen. Hello.
Hello, it's good to be back.
And it's good to have you back. Tal Silverman, next Wormy. Hello.
Hello. Nice to have all our listeners join us for our second season. Listeners. Sorry, yes.
listeners. And of course, the one and only learned one, we have Adam Leach. Hello.
Hi, Stephen. I'm not going to be talking much this season because I've had some feedback and I'm going to respect that.
That's fine. You can just think thoughts, but not say them.
That'll make a great podcast, won't it?
I think it'll be work. I'll do subtitles for those who only listen.
We're not all doing this, are we?
What? Thinking but not saying?
Yes.
Yeah. No, most of us
usually do talking without thinking.
Yeah. Without talking. So as always, we're going to kick off with what we always do, which is what sci-fi or science fiction news have you been watching? And as you may know, or if you don't know, because you're new to this podcast, this is a sci-fi podcast where we do stray into bits of, shall we say, fantasy and whatnot, as long as we can find some kind of connection to sci-fi somewhere. So on that basis, Simon, you want to talk about DC?
I do want to talk about DC.
Something loosely related to science fiction.
Loosely related
with DC.
Yes.
So those listener that listens to us will know that I'm a big Marvel fan. But actually, I've immersed myself in DC in our 2-month break since we recorded last. So
I like the fact that you've mixed your worlds though.
I have mixed my world. I've got a Captain America cap and a Batman background.
You're hanging into the Marvel universe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to be talking a bit of Marvel later, so I thought it appropriate. But no, I've been DCing, if that's even a word. In the last couple of months, I've watched Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, the new Zack Snyder Justice League, Aquaman, Shazam, and I'm on season 2 of Pennyworth as well, which is really good, by the way. So yeah, where do you want me to start on all that? I mean, I've just gone DC crazy in the last couple of months.
Well, I'm a bit disappointed actually, because I thought we were all going to get together to watch the Zack Snyder 4-hour epic.
I think that's just you and me, Stephen.
Oh, it's just you and me. Okay, and Tal, I thought.
Everyone who hasn't watched it, actually, apart from the one person who has watched it.
Yes, there we go. But as someone, I mean, I've watched a lot of DC. I actually do enjoy the DC movies. But I'm interested on your take, Simon, having recently immersing yourself in it. Describe the differences for you between the DC universe and the Marvel universe.
Oh, I was never good at this sort of thing at school. Compare and contrast. Well, look, DC is it's darker, it's more intense. In a way, it takes itself a bit more seriously. Marvel is much lighter, it's funnier, and more mainstream. And I think that the Zack Snyder movies, so those first 3, the Superman ones, basically are. You have to kind of immerse yourself in them to enjoy yourself. I wouldn't say the word is concentrate, but you kind of have to be in the mood to have that kind of tone and that kind of movie. Whereas Marvel stuff, you can just put on and drop in and out of probably whatever mood you're in. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing, with the exception of Shazam, though. Shazam was almost like DC were trying to copy the Marvel style of doing movies, and whilst it still worked, I really enjoyed Shazam. It was very different to the other ones that I'd watched. Adam, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, you took the words out of my mouth, really. I was just saying that out of all the DC movies, I love Shazam. I thought it was great, but I think I enjoyed it for that reason. It was light-hearted. It was a bit more tongue-in-cheek. It didn't take itself too seriously.
Without going into too much detail, I haven't seen it. I saw it flick up on the TV, but I haven't actually watched Shazam or know anything about it. Just give me a very quick précis.
Well, have you seen the movie Big?
Yes.
With Tom Hanks. So imagine Big, but when he gets big, he's also a superhero. It's kind of that. And there's actually there's a reference to Big as well. In that and Adam, I don't know if you remember this. He sort of runs across a big piano, a floor piano like there is in the Big movie. But yeah, that's basically what happens. He gets the powers of this wizard, and he immediately grows up from the age of 14 to a fully grown adult. And I think it's 14.
Doesn't sound like sci-fi to me.
No, this isn't sci-fi really at all. In fact, most of the DC stuff isn't sci-fi. I mean, Batman is because he's got tech. There is some attempt even in Superman to explain the science behind his powers. They talk about the changing gravity and the radiation of the sun's rays, and so there's some attempt at sci-fi in some of it, but not a lot. Stephen?
Are you enjoying it? Overall, you're enjoying your experience?
Yeah, I've loved it. And if anyone's sort of thinking of going and watching some of those, if they've watched some and not some of the others, I would recommend watching, and it's a lot to watch, but Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman and Zack Snyder's Justice League. They were originally meant as a trilogy. They flow quite nicely into each other. In fact, there's even some overlap in the movies. So I recommend watching them together if you've got the time.
Adam?
Yeah, I couldn't watch Batman versus Superman. I don't know whether I've said this before, but just the whole idea of Batman. I know in the Marvel universe you have, the Civil War when you have the superheroes fighting each other, but the whole idea of Batman versus Superman I just find it difficult to resonate with me. My Batman is Adam West. My Superman is Christopher Reeve. These guys would never have a bust up,
Except it's in the comics. To me. Adam, it's in the comics. The bit with Marvel, they took it from the comics. It's in the comics. It's also in the animated versions. There's whole future Batmans, and there's the Justice League, and then there's fighting amongst them. It's actually remarkably similar to what goes on with the Avengers, just in the world of DC.
That ties in with my question about Justice League for you, Simon, in that because I'm not seeing the extended version yet. I saw the original, but not the extended version.
So were you waiting until we all saw it together?
Yeah. I was actually. Now, does it benefit from being longer in so much as, do you think there's a lot of fluff in there that didn't need to be in there, or is it like now, or is it do you think it was worthwhile? I mean, obviously as a film, does it hang together? I know that's about three different questions.
Well, hold on, did you watch the original, Simon?
No, I didn't watch the original. I didn't watch the original,
okay.
so I can't compare them. But what I will say is the movie doesn't drag. It doesn't feel like it's too long. It works. I mean, it's a long movie, but you don't get bored at all. Clearly, you can't watch it all in one sitting. You have to, especially when you've got family, you have to do it in about 4 or 5. But no, it's a good movie. It's a good movie. You're not sitting there thinking, "Oh, come on, get on with it."
Right.
Not at all.
Have you watched Aquaman yet? Did you mention Aquaman?
Yes, yeah, I did watch that. Yeah,
because actually, I think that's a great film. I think that's a brilliant one. I think that's also extremely Marvel-esque. In it's very colourful, and there's a lot of one-liners in it. I think it's a good movie.
It is, and in some ways, it reminded me a bit like Black Panther, in that the whole stuff under the sea is a bit like Wakanda and sort of a hidden city, and I thought some of the special effects didn't quite work for me in that movie. Some of the underwater city stuff just looked a bit false. I guess it's hard to do, but but yeah, overall, I thought it was a very good movie. I was expecting it to be bad. Sorry,
was compared when you last went to an underwater city, and you were like, it was nothing like Atlantis when I went. So
I mean, maybe I was expecting because I watched Stargate Atlantis, and it was very very different to that. But
it's a big step up on Stingray, though. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, it is. But no, it's good. It's a good movie, and there's some cool fight scenes in it as well. In Aquaman, or Aquaman, I think we're supposed to pronounce it.
Yeah, and talking of fight scenes, thank you for that, Simon. Adam, you want to talk about some big animals?
I want to talk about the MonsterVerse. So I don't know if anyone's seen the MonsterVerse, but this is I watched King Kong versus Godzilla, or Godzilla versus King Kong is probably the right way around. But before I did that, I thought I'd go back, and because there's a sequence of movies, the MonsterVerse, and kicked off with the reboot of Godzilla. I think 2014. Then they had Kong, Skull Island. Then they had Godzilla, King of Monsters. Then there was Godzilla versus Kong. I'd seen Skull Island some years ago. I haven't seen the reboot of Godzilla, but I went back, watched King of Monsters first to kind of warm up, whet my appetite, and then went into Godzilla versus Kong. I thought it was great fun. I really thought it was great fun. It's not. It doesn't. Well, to say it doesn't take it too seriously is a bit of an understatement, really. There's a very kind of loose kind of storyline that ties these things together, and there's this kind of concept of Hollow Earth, where there's a kind of world inside, a bit like Journey to the Center of the world kind of thing. There's a world inside, and yeah, there's this backstory about these monsters and being on Earth, but it doesn't really matter. It's great fun. The effects are amazing. It looks really visually, really visually amazing, especially at the end. We've got the scene where Godzilla and King Kong are duking it out in, I think it's Hong Kong, and at night it's almost very cyberpunk-esque, with all this neon and all the buildings across Hong Kong. It looks amazing, and it's just good fun. And I found it. I know we're going to get on and talk about. We're going to talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but it was a real refreshing change to watch something that didn't have this really kind of, too much in there that you had to know about or think about, and it was just, good fun. So it was very much like a B movie, an old-fashioned B movie type scenario, and all the better for it. It was a lot of fun.
I'll tell you what's a refreshing change, Adam, and that's to hear you talking positively about something. Like, I can't remember the last time that happened. You actually enjoyed something.
This is going to be. It's a new me. It's a new me. It's season 2. We're only going to have the.
I love the fact that you're being positive about a film that you described as terrible, but you really enjoyed it.
I did.
You still had nothing bad to say about it. It's very impressive.
Is it sci-fi though? Is it sci-fi?
Well, there's one bit where the kids decides there's a Mecha Godzilla, and they decide need to hack into Mecha Godzilla, and he goes, "I did a summer school in HTML5. I've got this." Kind of thing. It's literally what he said. And then he realizes he can't do it, and he gets a flask of whiskey, pours it over the computer, and that does the trick. So it's just brilliant.
That's how you should have got your RoboDog working, Adam.
Yeah,
I spent trying to program it.
Should have just got the whiskey over it. Yeah,
that'd be a waste of good whiskey. I'd say the last Godzilla movie I watched was the one, I think, in the 90s with
the guy,
the husband of Jessica Parker. What's the guy from Ferris Bueller?
Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, Matthew Broderick. Yeah, it's playing a scientist.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that one. That's not a bad movie, as I remember.
No, it's a good movie, and the French actor. I don't know if he's French Moroccan or French. Yeah, for the guy from Lyon. He's in that. That was I enjoyed that Godzilla movie, and then I think there was a really dark one that followed many years later. Is the one you're watching part of is it related to the darker ones? Like, is it part of a series of movies, or is it a standalone?
No, they rebooted Godzilla in 2014. So maybe if that's the one you're talking about, the darker one. So then Skull Island in 2017. That was the run.
That's the one I saw. That first 2014 one.
2014 through to Godzilla versus Kong. and that was going to be the end of it. I read that they were going to end it there because Godzilla King of Monsters didn't perform very well in the box office. So when Godzilla versus Kong came out, they were already thinking, well, that will be the last one. But actually, Godzilla versus Kong has done really well globally, despite the pandemic. Has done well, and they're thinking about Kong, another Kong movie in this line. Son of Kong is the suggested name of it. No, and the same director of the King of Monsters, and
that's what they always do. I think they did that with the Mask, Son of the Mask. That's how they keep these things.
The thing is, Son of Kong, he'd be small, wouldn't he? So I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
Is his name Donkey, and does he throw barrels?
I hope so.
So Tal, you want to talk us about something a little bit retro?
Yes. Well, funnily enough, actually, there's two things I'm going to mention. One is I've had an interesting sci-fi week. I've had an interesting week of equal amount pleasure and pain, really. So I'll quickly talk about the pain element first. In that I was at a loose end a couple of days ago, had a bit of time free, was just surfing the channels, and came across Terra Nova on Disney Plus, which was I didn't realize it was obviously, I didn't realize it was quite as old as it was until I started watching it and then looked it up and realized it was 2011, and an alarm bell should have rang when I realized it was just one season. But I kind of saw it and then started playing it and thought, oh, Steven Spielberg's executive producer, this is going to be good. And the concept is actually really good. I don't know, have any of you seen it? Is it? No. Okay. No. So the concept, I think, is a really interesting, well, not really interesting, it's a good concept, but just very, very poorly executed. But basically it's kind of Stargate meets Jurassic Park. So it's set in the 22nd century. The Earth's, we've destroyed the Earth. There's no atmosphere, hardly any atmosphere left. Everyone's got breathing troubles. There's like a one-child policy around the whole world because nobody wants to bring people into the world, and the population's got out of hand, and it's a terrible place to be, dystopian future. And they find a time rift, and they manage to basically create a portal and go back 85 million years to essentially restart the human race. So they're sending people back, and they're kind of sending back kind of like groups of people to basically start again. And they create these compounds, and outside the compounds basically there's loads of dinosaurs, and there is a bit of a kind of ulterior thing going on, which we know a little bit about. We don't know that much about, which looks quite interesting, but they haven't really talked about it. Basically the scripting's awful, the acting's awful, the special effects are pretty basic. It's pretty shocking, really. I've given it 3 episodes now because I felt like I should do, but it is pretty poor.
Is it worse than Doctor Who?
It's definitely worse than Doctor Who, Stephen.
This is a shame because it does sound like a good concept. I mean, time travel and dinosaurs, you can't go wrong with that usually.
I thought this is going to be great, and it's just really terribly scripted, just like very cringy almost, just like people saying, oh, look over there, it's just really pedestrian. And the stories, they did a story that actually was almost identical to a Star Trek story, which was about and it was actually almost identical to one of the first episodes of Discovery. Do you remember? I don't remember when Discovery, there was Enterprise. There was an episode in a cave where they all hallucinated, and they all thought that they were kind of against each other. Yeah. And they basically worked out it was some gas or something. Basically, they replicated that exact story in a separate episode.
I think you'll find Red Dwarf might have done that first.
Yeah.
Where did you see this?
It's on Disney Plus, but they only did 1 season. It was done in 2011. So I mean, I'm not even sure I'll get through the whole any more of the season, any more of it actually. But I would like to recommend it, but I'm not going to. Yes,
Adam.
I'd like to say, Tom, it's refreshing to hear you really dislike something.
Yeah. Role reversal thing going on here. On the flip side, I rewatched the reboot of Hitchhikers Guide to the Galaxy, which was very enjoyable. The girls watched it with us. We all watched it as family. The girls enjoyed it. They thought it was quite funny. The bit that we all found the most hilarious actually, was just the bit where they land on the Vogon planet and There's the every time they think about something, they get hit in the face. It's just classic slapstick. It's like there's just no reason for it whatsoever, and it's just like brilliant. It's like it's just the funniest thing. It's just so there's some really great moments in that. And I didn't realise because the funny thing is obviously my fondest memories were of the original TV series, and I remember I think I went to the cinema to watch Hitchhikers when it came out, the reboot when it came out. And I remember being actually not enjoying it very much at all in the cinema. And actually, as a home movie, it was great and it was nice to see it with the kids. But I just obviously just feel naturally nostalgic about the original series. But what I didn't realise was that my kids think Martin Freeman is the most famous man on the planet because they've watched Black Panther. They've just watched the Sherlock Holmes series with Cumberbatch. So that's kind of been so they was like, oh, he's in that. And then they watched this, and then they watched The Hobbit as well. So they watched everything in the space of about the last 3 months. Every single film we've watched has had Martin Freeman in.
So thank you for that, Tal. Moving on. Palm Spring. I don't know if any of you have seen the adverts for this on Amazon. Palm Spring is a bit...
I know this one.
It's the Groundhog Day film.
It's Groundhog Day. It's Groundhog Day, but with zany comedy with the guy, for any of you watch it, from Brooklyn 911, it's loosely sci-fi, but really, I mean, ironically, near the end, it is actually science because there is some weird pseudo science as to how they can escape this loop that they're stuck in. But it's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's silly. There's some really funny scenes in it. It was suggested as sci-fi. It really is very loosely sci-fi, but it's a good movie. I don't need to talk about much of it, but
I did read an article that went through the time loop movies, Groundhog Day, talked about Palm Springs, but I can't remember the movies that it said in the middle of that. So that's my fault for taking a dead end.
The only thing I'll say is that the Groundhog Day that. The reason why Palm Springs doesn't really explore the consequences of being in a loop is it assumes the audience has seen Groundhog Day. And when I mean that, I don't mean they mention Groundhog Day. I don't mean they're dropping things in like a Ready Player One. You just get this whole feeling as you're watching it that there's things that it assumes you will know, having watched such a famous movie.
Yeah. Well, that's
because the guy even says to the girl, and I think I can say this without giving away because it's in the trailer. When the girl discovers she's in the same situation as him, he says, we're in that kind of infinite time loop thing.
Yeah. But I think that's because it's a genre. You don't have to explain a rom-com to a rom-com audience because they know the genre. You're watching a genre movie. I think that's
exactly. So that's been my sci-fi experience. I mean, I've done some other bits.
Would you recommend it? Should we go and watch it?
Well, yeah, I enjoyed it, and my wife enjoyed it. Who's not normally into sci-fi, but she likes comedy. And so, I would recommend it. I wouldn't, it's not film of the year, but there are some really funny scenes in it. And it is quite funny from a nerdy point of view as to how they solve the problem. Let's talk about something which actually does ask some philosophical questions about what is it to be? As they wrote in Shakespeare, to be or not to be. Adam, do you want to lead us on our section where we talk about our book club?
A book club, my feature, you could call it.
We could call it
my Adam's book club.
If we hadn't spent
we could call it
my graphics, we would have graphics for Adam's feature.
We could. Well, we don't do it as often, but we could call it Adam's feature if we wanted to.
If we wanted to, don't.
But we don't.
But
no, we won't.
Just a section. It's just a section we happen to be doing now.
Yes.
I'm leading. Okay.
So do you want to take the lead?
If you cast your mind back to the last time that I did a section like this of the book club, we decided to read We Are Legion, We Are Bob by Dennis E. Taylor. So we've all read it this time because last time that wasn't the case. Have we all read it? We can confirm everyone has read it, including Simon.
Yeah, read it.
As well. Amazing. So no one has to dip out at this point. We can just carry on. So the book is about a guy who dies. Very much, it's not really a spoiler. He dies. He becomes the mind of a spaceship, and Earth is a bit post-apocalyptic. They have to launch space probes to find other planets for us to live on, and he becomes the mind of this spaceship. And he has a mission to find other planets, but also, I think this is the critical point of this, to replicate. So there's this kind of self-replicating technology that the ship is launched. He creates others like him, which is why we are Legion. And then
he's a von Neumann probe, isn't he? Sorry to get all sciencey, but one of the things I like about this book is that it's based on this scientific concept, which I think is not new. It's like 20 years old or something, which is that, what if we put a 3D printer in a spaceship and let it go and mine resources and create copies of itself. And that's kind of the whole basis of this probe, and why you end up with multiple Bobs. Sorry, Adam, carry on.
That's all right. No, and that's it. And I read the book. It's very there's a lot of references to sci-fi in there. It's very referential, which is why I liked it. It's quite light-hearted. It's a bit humorous, but also is a serious story. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was it was humorous, and I thought it was a really great read. So I'm interested what others have.
Computery as well, which is another reason why I would have thought you would have liked it, Adam, because it's
the guy is a software engineer, isn't he?
Yeah.
And I think that does appeal to me, that his kind of references.
Yeah.
And
I actually really like the way they dealt with the replication in the whole kind of like them not being identical copies, because they have consciousness and they can kind of, they sort of took certain elements of his original personality. Yeah. So each of the different replicants are very kind of, they're different. They have slightly different. Then there's the Homer one, and there's the kind of
there's replicant drift, isn't there? And that's an important part of what.
And that's quite interesting. I think that as a concept, in terms of like, it's a bit like evolution, isn't it? In that that you have this genetic code that kind of just changes and then mutates and take different aspects of it. And actually that in itself then becomes a concept around the fact that, is that a new species in itself, in terms of, it's very human, because obviously it's a human person, but it's like, it's the way it's written into the code is I quite like that. I thought it was very clever.
When does Bob become not Bob?
Yeah.
Which is what I think gets explored a bit later. Stephen.
Yeah, I just want to echo that what I was saying. I think what I liked about it was those deep questions, as I said in the intro, where it makes us question, what is it to be? What is it to be us?
But I mean, Bob wasn't an AI, but but I get the point about sort of almost like the code drifting and reaching different conclusions, and effectively, in the case of Bob, leading to a slightly different personality, and that, just bringing it back to the story, sort of takes the Bobs in different directions. They decided they have different motives, they have different missions in life, and then that sort of pings off and creates separate storylines within the bigger story arc across. Well, we should say that the Bob We Are Legion book is the first of a trilogy. There's actually a fourth book as well, but these storylines, all these Bobs go off in not just geographically different directions, but also sort of mentally and spiritually in different directions, and brings us different elements, different stories.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me was interesting. I mean, I've only read the first book, so you guys might actually not agree with this in so much as seeing it as an entire series of books. But the thing I found that the major flaw in the book for me was almost that he just tried to be too ambitious, in so much as, because he had so many different characters. And I don't know whether it was, again, because I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I decided to do this on audiobook, and maybe I sort of was doing it while I was doing other things and wasn't 100% concentrating. But I just found the whole kind of dipping in and out of the different Bobs were almost like, they were all stories in themselves and were interesting. And I like the fact that he kind of tried to do lots of different things. And I know there was an overarching kind of concept as to what he was trying to achieve with all the different areas that he was working in. But it felt very kind of like if you tried to draw that on a wall in a map, in a mind map, it would be like so chaotic. Do you know what I mean?
And it
Well,
doesn't
actually,
get.
can I just say there's a Wikipedia page you can go to where they've done exactly that.
Have they?
They've done the whole family tree. Yeah.
But hang on,
of all the
but
books.
by the time you get to the fourth book, there's like 20 or 30 generations of them.
Wow.
But I get your point, Tom, and I did sort of find it, I wouldn't say difficult at times, but it was a bit annoying jumping around. And also, I don't think it followed time naturally either. I think they were jumping in some of the stories, jumping forwards and backwards, backwards in time. But that does continue across all three books, 1, 2, and 3. They continue doing that until you get to 4, where there's basically 2 storylines that are interwoven between each other. It's a different kind of book, number 4. 4 is very good if you get there.
Right, okay.
I don't think the time issue is such an issue for the interstellar reason, which is they're all so many miles away from each other and some of them are traveling whilst others are already arrived. So their experience of time is not linear anyway.
Yeah,
In the same way.
But they have this kind of real-time communication that he develops that kind of
That magically,
You know, the other, I quite like the way that each new Bob that comes along names himself after a character in some kind of, you know, TV show that they've watched in the past, you know. So you see the birthday present that William Shatner gave the world.
Yes, he's did a whole load of videos, so they'll generate an AI, so you can then talk to him and ask him questions
After he's dead. So family, friends, anyone will be able to talk to William Shatner after he dies, because
this
he's
is going to be a
effectively
big thing, turning dead people into chatbots.
Yeah. So all he's really doing is manually ish downloading him from his head into a computer. It's not too dissimilar to what happens in the Bob books.
Should we get on to the next? Should we get on to part 2, which is choosing our next book?
Go on, Adam.
Should we do that? So
Let's do that.
I've got 3 cracking books here. All of them, I've realised the theme of it probably says more about me than it does about anything else. I'd say this is video game sci-fi is the theme here. And I really chose this first one because I remember when I was talking about Ready Player 2, I was going, I love the references to the Dragon 64 and the BBC Micro. You know, I'd love that. And Stephen made the comment that, well, you know, if there was a name drop of the Commodore 64 or some sci-fi that referenced the Commodore 64, I'd be there. And I remembered that this book that I read, Off to Be the Wizard by Scott Mayer, which is our first choice, does just that. There is a guy that uses a Commodore 64 in it. So this is for you, Stephen.
There you go.
So this book, I'm just going to read you the kind of the blurb on the back just quickly. So Scott Meyer is the author. He's an American author. It's published in 2014. It's the first one of a series of books. And the back reads, Martin Banks is just a normal guy who has made an abnormal discovery. He can manipulate reality thanks to reality being nothing more than a computer program. With every use of the ability, though, Martin finds that these little tweaks haven't escaped the notice of the authorities. So rather than face prosecution, he decides instead to travel back in time. There's also time travel in it as well, to the Middle Ages and pose as a wizard. So basically, he discovers a file. The file basically has loads of parameters. He could just tweak the parameters like his age, his relative position to the floor. He can change anything, how far he can see. It's all just parameters in a file that he hacks into and can find his entry and make whatever changes he wants. So he starts to make changes to the bank account, which
whoa, we don't need to know everything.
This really is the beginning. This is not maybe. This isn't Ted. The feds come after him, and that's when he decides to hatch a plan, because one of the variables you can change is to go back in time. So that's what he does. So it's light-hearted, it's comedy, it's nothing too serious, but it does have wizards, it does have time travel, it does have a Commodore 64 in it. That is...
Wow. Okay, this is sounding good so far. What else you got?
Next one is by one of our favourite featured authors of our podcast, Ernest Cline, and this is Armada, which I believe is his second book after Ready Player One. And this book, I'll read you the blurb, published in 2015. Zach Lightman has spent his life dreaming that the real world could be a little more like the countless science fiction books, movies, and video games he spends his life consuming. Dreaming that one day some fantastic world-altering event will shatter the monotony of his humdrum existence and whisk him off to some far-flung place. And then he sees a flying saucer. And even stranger, the flying saucer is from his favorite video game that he's been playing called Armada. And that's it. That's the start.
Are there any wizards in it?
I don't believe there are wizards in this one. There is.
Is there an Amiga?
There's a lot of video game references.
Yeah.
There's a lot of there's a lot of 80s references.
The blurb didn't say it was basically Flight of the Navigator meets Ender's Game, though, did it?
It didn't say. It doesn't say that in the blurb. It doesn't say that. It says, I have a thing. I know you're a massive Ernest Cline fan, and I know you're a massive. We're all Ready Player One fans. I mean, I enjoyed the first one, less so the second one. But enough's enough. That's what you're going to say. Enough.
No, I just found this Armada. Again, it was well written in terms of it was a page turner, but it was just.
Oh, you've already read it.
I've already read it.
Well, this is okay. Well, that might.
Oh, that's right. Well, that one's getting crossed off.
I think this is. I
don't mind reread. Look, if we think we're going to do it, I'm happy to. We'll reread it. I've got it upstairs. I will read it. But I just thought it was too derivative. It was just.
It is derivative, but it's knowingly derivative, which is my part. I think saves it because the fact it's derivative is part of the plot, which I think is what saves it. But anyway, that's Armada by Ernest Cline. And the last one, as I felt like I'd already got the theme of sci-fi, video game sci-fi, I went for Ender's Game, which is Orson Scott Card's novel published in 1985, which is about a guy called Andrew Ender Wiggin, thinks he's playing a computer simulated war game. He is in fact engaged in something far more desperate. The result of a genetic experimentation, Ender maybe the military genius Earth desperately needs in a war against an alien enemy seeking to destroy all human life. The only way to find out is to throw Ender into even harsher training to chip away at the diamond inside, either to utterly destroy him or will Ender Wiggin save the world. I think that's about it.
And this, apart from sounding extremely similar to what was that 1980s film where the boy was playing a video game?
What game?
The Last Starfighter. So
Armada is basically the Last Starfighter and Ender's Game mixed together.
There you go. But Ender's Game was turned into a movie in the 2000s.
Ender's Game was,
with Harrison Ford. That's right. Yeah, that's right. I have it on Blu-ray.
And also Ender's Game is a bit military sci-fi as well. So it's not quite as bubblegummy as the other two. It's a bit military sci-fi and this kind of video game thing as well. So that's the three. So you need to choose one of those.
Well, for me, I mean, if I was Adam, I'd go with the majority, of course. But I'm going to go with the one with the Commodore 64, clearly.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that, Stephen. The Armada one we sort of discounted halfway through. Ender's Game, well, look, if the movie's out, I'll just go and watch that. I'm a fan of wizards, so that one sounds good. Off to see the wizard.
Yeah,
the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
I've seen Ender's Game, and it was a good film. I'm actually quite interested to read the book, just in case it's kind of better. But actually, because I already generally know the story, and I've read it recently when I read Armada because it's the same story. I will vote for Off to Be the Wizard as well.
All right then.
Well, you know what I'm going to do.
You will read Armada.
I'm going to go with the majority.
I'll go with the majority. Yeah.
Yes.
Off to Be the Wizard. Great. Okay, so that's our next book club book.
There we go. So hopefully we'll catch up with that in a few, in around a month or so. So well done on picking that. And our next final segment of this amazing episode 1 of season 2 is the Falcon and Winter Soldier, because that series has been on. and it is it's on. It's not finished because it's streaming, so you can watch it again or watch it for the first time. But for those of us on this podcast, we've already watched it, so we can now discuss it. So, Simon, you've got the hat on. So tell us what you thought about it.
Well,
give us the macro and the micro.
The macro and the micro. Okay. Overall, it was good. It wasn't great. It's like it started the first couple of episodes I really enjoyed. It built nicely. There was loads of action in episode 2, I think it was, and then it just sort of quietened down for a bit, and then built up to a nice couple of last episodes. It finished well, I thought. There's good. I enjoy the way they move the characters forwards, and I don't know if you remember when we talked about WandaVision, that we briefly talked about this before it started, and I said we haven't really seen much about Sam, about the Falcon. We don't really know much about him, and I don't think his character's developed that much. And I felt that they did a lot with him. And spoiler, he became Captain America at the end. But I think that he was a good Captain America. I think they built it up nicely. I think that he earned it. I think that he looked good. I think that the combination of the shield and his rocket powers and his flying just sort of worked pretty well. So I like what they did with him. And then just one final point for now on this summary. I love Bucky. I mean, I just think he's the coolest character, and I really liked what they did with his with his arc as well. He sort of not came good. He'd already come good, but he sort of dealt with his problems and issues, became a true hero, and really enjoyed seeing him on screen.
That's good. I'm actually going to dive in because I like some what you were saying. One thing I'm going to actually start with is because if you think about it, it's the closest thing they've done to Avengers, not Avengers, Marvel. What's it called, Simon? Think of Shield. Marvel of Shield,
Agents of Shield.
Thank you. There's all these word Marvel Avengers agents. It's the closest thing they've done to that since they've done that, in the sense of it's Marvel universe, but very much action focused, and TV as opposed to movie. And I thought it was a step up.
Like though, it did feel.
No, but what I'm saying though, it's not a movie. But it's a step up from what they did for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because it really did have production values of a movie. Sure, there was a few scenes where it felt like maybe, that didn't quite have the same budget as that one. For example, they kept using that same courtyard in whatever the Eastern European pretend country it was meant to be, where the baddies were hanging out. Right, they spent a lot of time in that courtyard because they clearly wanted to film it from every potential angle they could. But overall, I thought the action scenes, the cast size, the budget, and everything was really up there with the movies. And I thought I thought his journey to Captain America, I thought was really good. And it was obvious, if you were going to say what was the point of this series, the point of the series was it was his journey to become Captain America. Okay. But I really liked all the other characters. I'm not as happy as you are with the way they resolved Bucky's storyline, because actually he suddenly just everything was okay, and he gave the book back to the psychologist and all the rest of it. But actually, I thought that was a bit cut, and I think it could have been elongated. I think the issue about Sharon, I'm hoping there's another twist or turn. I'm hoping Sharon isn't what we think she is, because if so, not because I'm disappointed it's Sharon, but just because it's a bit obvious. So I'm hoping there's another twist or turn.
There is that idea that the Countessa, because the Countessa who's now got the US agent working for her, we think, well, we believe from what I've read from the Marvel stuff that she's S.H.I.E.L.D. So she's potentially good, even though she's kind of coming across as being quite kind of devious and whatever else. And I wonder whether Sharon's actually, there was an idea that maybe she, at the end when she was on the phone, whether she was actually talking to the Countessa, and maybe they're together as part of the new S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever, in terms of, maybe that's where that's going to go. I don't know, because I kind of, I'd be a bit kind of like disappointed, and would be disappointed, I think, if it turns out that she isn't, great. But they've definitely left it nice and open for it to go to a second season. But it'll be interesting, like you said about the Bucky character. I wonder whether they can make him interesting enough in the coming season, because of the fact that they've done his story, really, haven't they? It's like,
yeah, I mean, I really thought that he would get the shield at the end of it. Like, I genuinely hoped he would. Actually, I thought he'd make a good Captain America. And it's interesting, Stephen, you were saying that actually the show is actually about Sam's journey to Captain America. But actually, I think it was our journey as well. Like, they were taking us on this journey where, we had to accept this new Captain America as the audience. Because, when Steve Rogers sort of gives up the shield, we don't believe that anyone else could take that role. And I think for us, we needed to see that he could earn it and could become that.
I do think the
can I just jump in on that? Sorry, Stephen. I just sort of reflecting two things on the, where we got to at the end of WandaVision and where we got to at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And it was like, at the end of WandaVision, we found out that Wanda is Scarlet Witch. At the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we find out that Sam is Captain America. Both of those things we kind of know at the end of Endgame. Like, they haven't really moved forward a great deal. It's kind of inched forward, even to the point where, if we hadn't watched these two things, but in the next movie, Scarlet Witch turns out to be actually Scarlet Witch with her full powers, and then the Falcon has got the shield because we've seen that he's had the handoff. We wouldn't have necessarily needed to see those programs to be on them in their next journey. Because think of the Hulk when he became Professor Hulk, or when he became, we never saw any of that journey. We just saw him go from Angry Hulk to then in Endgame he was like Banner and Hulk together, and we just accepted it.
It's a bit like an origin story, though, isn't it? Really, they've sort of done an origin story after the fact, but actually, I think it works. I love a good origin story.
And it's a different, and you're right, Tom. It's an origin story because he's not the same Captain America as the last one. He stands for something different, and actually, he stands for a different America than when the first Captain America in the 1940s first got the shield, and I think that journey and that representation is told really well, through the whole.
Actually, it's interesting because we've often complained about how woke Star Trek Discovery has been, and what was really good about this was they attacked a fundamentally big political issue, especially, there's discrimination and all the other things worldwide, but let's be honest, America has a real issue with race relations, right? I'm not saying it's perfect here. I don't need any of our listeners going, whoa, but America has an acute issue, okay? And I think, without being all woke and wet and all of the other stuff, I thought they dealt with this really, really well. They didn't pull any punches in the way they scripted it. And I think they took America on a journey to get him to be Captain America.
Really easily, actually.
And I think it did really well. Similar, and I think sometimes American TV series does this well. In other words, if you go back to 24, and I'm sure some sociologist has done this somewhere. If you look at 24, where I think the original series had a black president, you could argue that series opened the door to Obama because it let a lot of the people in America, because that was a very, very popular TV show, get used to the idea that you can have someone, why can't you? But it got them used to the idea that you could have someone like that as their head of state, and he could be an amazing individual and all the rest of it. And I think Disney managed to pull off a really good thing, which is very timely with what's going on in America with this series, and it never felt wet. It never felt wokish. And the thing is, I don't think they'll go back to that theme. They've done it now, and now is Captain America, and they won't be like Discovery and rediscovering it and re-going to it and sighing. I reckon he's now Captain America. Push on.
It'd be interesting to see how, when they start doing movies, if they do another Avengers movie, how his role is because obviously Steve Rogers was the leader of the gang in terms of, he was the captain, of the Avengers. And it'd be interesting to see how he assumes, because Sam's position within that dynamic or that demographic of superheroes was always very different to Captain America's place. So actually, it'd be really interesting to see how they deal with that. If they get them all back together again.
The thing is with Sam is he doesn't actually have any superpowers. He's not a super. Steve Rogers was a super soldier. Sam hasn't taken any super soldier serum. He's just him, isn't he?
He's Batman now.
He's Batman. He's Marvel's version of Batman.
But I did. Someone said he's the new Iron Man. And actually, when you see him flying with the drones and the tech, he's a bit more
dark technology, isn't he? Really?
Yeah. So I think that's a really good, valid point. And actually, we said that I think only in our previous episode in the last season, his Iron Man is Batman, right? Because we had them face off against each other. So he is the new Iron Man. Yeah, and I think that's a really good. I think it's a really, really good point. Incidentally, I don't know if Simon said that about series 2. I don't know if there is going to be a series 2, at least not anytime soon, because they've already announced Captain America 4.
Yeah.
So they're going to go straight into production for Captain America 4. So I think what's really interesting is all these TV series they're doing, there might be other seasons, but it's not going to be a yearly thing like Agents.
Well, they've got so much coming up now, haven't they? There's 22 or so, 20 something things in the next couple of years or whatever it is. It's like there's so many different things that obviously would give them content going forward, but I just think that they've got so much planned already for so many different characters, and there's new characters coming as well that we've not even seen before. There's She-Hulk and all sorts of things. It's like,
and most importantly, in 6 weeks' time, Loki.
High hopes for Loki, but overall, people were happy with a bit of entertainment from Winter Soldier, from Falcon and Winter Soldier. Yeah,
are we going to rate it?
Nods
out of 10?
Yeah, let's rate it. Adam, what do you give it out of 10?
Out of 10.
What did we give WandaVision? Was it like 6? I think it averaged around 6 out of 10.
I think it was. Yeah, I think maybe it was over the 5. It was about 6, 5.
Yeah,
6.
I think so. So with that in mind, Adam, what do you give Winter?
It was about a 6.5, 7 for me.
Simon?
Yeah, 7. I'll go with that.
I'm gonna give it an 8. I just think I did really enjoy it, and I just think and I think it was a nice. I got that warm and fuzzy feeling from it after, and almost like obviously having finished it, I now feel like it was, like you say, it was just a very complete story as a whole. But I agree about the fact that every episode wasn't as tight as it could have been. And
just a rating, Tal.
8.
And I'm going to go 7. So I'm going to give it a solid 7, not a 6.5. Solid 7. So without doing the maths, it's obvious we rate this better than WandaVision. So let's hope Loki hits an 8.
Indeed,
across the board. I'll be surprised if it hits more than that, because with these things you build it up and then you're always a little bit disappointed. But let's hope it can get to an 8. So with that, we come to the end of the first episode of season 2. I'd like to thank Adam Leach for joining us.
It's been an absolute pleasure and an honour.
Yeah, for us especially. Tal, thank you for joining us.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
And Simon Cohen, thank you for keeping Batman's groin warm and wearing your lovely hat and joining us.
Thanks, guys.
And with that, this is me, Stephen Gurvich, your host of 4 Men in a Wormhole, signing off. Bye-bye.
4 Men in a Wormhole!